Clown on a lawnmower? So, I have contemplated telling this forever because it sounds so not real, but I love this sub so much, so I've decided to share it here. When I was in high school, I worked at the local Pizza Hut and I was a closing server, so after closing down the salad bar and mopping I got out of there pretty late. I had this ritual of texting my dad when I was almost done to let him know I was almost home, but mostly it was to test and see if him and my mom were awake or not. If they weren't, I would take the long way home on the old country roads and I would smoke a joint or two and jam out. One particular night, I decided to do this, and I was riding along a back road about 3-4 minutes from my house. This is a road I know very well. My bus took this road my whole childhood. One thing to note about my area is I live in the deep woods of East Texas, so most people who own property put their houses about 1/4 to 1/2 of a mile back on their property and keep their exposed woods as basically a natural fence and defense. So, while you can see a lot of driveways and mailboxes, you can see almost no houses, just woods with chunks taken out. As I'm driving, I come upon a toolbox smack dab in the middle of the tiny dirt road. I pull up to it and stop and open my door, stepping out, but not away from my car. As I take in my obstacle, I realize my headlights are not the only light in the road. There are headlights, small ones, coming up a driveway that was parallel with the toolbox. I sit back down in my car and close my door till only a crack is open, so that in a moment's notice I can close it, go off into the grass and get TF out of there. A small riding wheel lawnmower comes out from the trees, and riding it is a man in a full clown suit and mask with a shotgun laid across his lap. He turns and looks directly through my windscreen and into my eyes and brings the shotgun up out of his lap. Now I am a country boy through and through. I can smell when I'm somewhere I'm not wanted, so before he even got the butt of that thing to his shoulder, my car was in drive and in the side ditch of the road. I got out of there, threw my joint out, went home, crawled in bed, and never spoke about it again. I don't know what that guy was doing, seeing as this was probably 2018 to 19, so after the killer clown craze. Whether it was a dumb kid or some crazy backwoods man, Mr. Clown, let's not meet again. Please. Someone keeps knocking at my door late at night. In June of this year, I moved out of my parents' apartment as I finally got a steady job and longed for some sort of freedom. I looked for apartments that were affordable in my city and found one that's a 2 or 3 minute walk from my parents' apartment. To me it was perfect. I'd get to live alone and my parents would still be nearby, so I could visit them whenever I wanted or pop in to have breakfast with them. The apartment itself is great. It's not really much to look at, but for a single male it's more than enough. My apartment has a long corridor connecting each room together from the sides, with my front door being at the start of the corridor. My bedroom is the second room on the left, but since the walls are pretty thin, you can literally hear people in the apartment complex walking, talking, etc. from my bedroom. Last week I came home from the pub after meeting up with a few friends. It wasn't really late, around 10:15 or 10:30-ish, and I had the day off, so I took a shower and hopped into bed to watch Netflix. It was probably around midnight when I heard a faint knock coming from the front door. I stopped the show that I was watching and listened for a minute or so and just thought that it was my mind playing tricks on me. I continued watching Netflix when once again I heard a 2-motion knock on my door. I sat up from bed, went to the door and looked through the peephole, and sure enough it was pitch black. I once again shrugged it off and went back to my room, but before I could even sit down properly I heard a slightly louder knock knock. At this point I thought it was my friends playing a prank on me, so I called my friend and asked if he was knocking on my door, and if he was, it wasn't amusing. He paused for a second and said, "Dude, I'm at home. I have to be up at like 7:30. I believed him and hung up the phone. I was talking pretty loudly, so whoever was knocking probably heard me, and as soon as I hung up I heard another knock. At this point I was pretty pissed off, so I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw nothing. I then unlocked the door, took a peek, and closed the door and locked it. Me being angry and a bit intoxicated, I decided to wait and catch whoever was knocking. So I spent a solid 10 minutes silently looking through the peephole before being a bit startled as someone put their hand over the peephole and knocked again. I immediately started unlocking the door and ran out to the apartment hall. I heard someone booking it down the steps and heard him lean against the wall as his jacket shrugged the wall. So I ran a few steps down before realizing that whoever this is was waiting behind the corner to get the jump on me. I hurried back inside and called the cops. They were there within a few minutes and scanned the building and the street, but couldn't find anyone. They told me that it could just be some kids pulling a prank and to never run after someone. They kept a patrol car around the entire night and the knocking stopped. It could have been some kids being dumb, but the part that gave me the fucking creeps was the fact that whoever it was ran down the stairs and stopped behind the corner. He didn't keep running. If it were some pranksters, I find it more likely that they would have just booked it outside. As I said, it's been a week and the knocking stopped. It kept me on edge for a few days because I just expected to be jumped by someone when walking into my apartment, but so far nothing has come of it. I've let it go ATP and just hope that it won't happen again.